When we reviewed how to compose interaction designs in Bezi, we briefly touched on how to run and test your projects on smartphones and headsets using Bezi Connect. In this lesson, we'll be going through in-depth with Play Mode and take it a step further by showing you how to quickly run and test your projects on smartphones and headsets. In Bezi, all updates made to a project are reflected in real time across all devices. For example, if you're working on a project on desktop, someone viewing that project in headset or mobile will see the same change in the same moment. In the scene editor with a composed project that has interaction design set up, in the top right corner is the Play Mode button. Click it to launch a video in a new tab. Now that you're in this mode, you can interact with your project. Try testing it by clicking on Interactive Elements. When testing your interactions, an important thing to note is that some interactions may not have loaded properly, or may not perfectly reflect drastic changes made in the editor. Try hitting the reset button on the top right to tell Bezi to restart directly, or hit the browser refresh button if major changes are not yet viewable on any active devices. When sharing your file, some interactions may not be fully active. To guide your viewers, interactive elements will be highlighted in yellow. If you want to turn this off, you can do so in Prototype Settings. To go into Prototype Settings, click the Share button. There you'll see Prototype Settings. You can also see this in the Scene Editor. The first setting is deciding what camera you want to start with. By default, it's the first camera you have set up in your scene. But if you want to change it to another camera, you can do so. You can also decide to not let users select any cameras that you have set up. Conversely, you can limit what cameras they have access to. As a 3D interaction designer, it's up to you to decide how many guardrails you want to set up. As discussed earlier, if you want to hide the yellow interactive hotspots, you can do so right here. We recommend keeping this turned on in the testing phase when third parties try to interact with your project. Keep note how often the yellow hotspots turn up when others preview your project. This helps you figure out if your interactions are clearly defined to your users. The last option is Enable Teleport with Hands. This option allows you to move through immersive worlds with a pre-built teleportation system. If you want your user to move around the scene, it's a helpful way to navigate. But if you expect them to be stationary, this is where you turn it off. Let's go through the Play Mode user interface. On the top bar is a menu to go back to your home screen files or scene editor. Next to that is the comment tool for users to leave notes on your project. On the right, as mentioned before, is the reset button. This is where you get to switch between your cameras and your states. Navigation tips are on the bottom right corner to help you understand how to navigate the 3D scene. Play Mode is designed to give you a real-time preview of interactions and animations within your project. It's important to note that while this mode provides a good indication of how your project performs in ideal situations on high-end devices, it's always best to test it on other devices that you intend to publish on. This is where Bezi Connect comes in. Bezi Connect is a set of features that allows you to quickly view your project on other devices while keeping up with your design flow. Let's start with viewing your project on a smartphone. To do so, let's go back to the Scene Editor and hit the drop-down next to the Play button. Select Mobile. A new pop-up will appear with instructions on how to connect to your smartphone. Before connecting, let's make sure that you have the right browsers on your device. On Android, you can use Chrome Mobile. On iOS, Bezi supports XR browser. Be sure to download this from the App Store before continuing. Now that we have the browsers ready, there are two ways to get the URL on your phone. The first is by copying the code from your desktop and pasting it to your smartphone. This works well for certain scenarios, such as if your Mac shares the same Apple ID as your smartphone, but the faster and more reliable way is by using the QR code above. On your smartphone browser, pull up the QR code scanner. This will load your Bezi project and you can interact with it there. If you design your project to work in augmented reality, click on the AR button on the top right. Once in AR, it'll ask you to move your camera around to scan your surroundings and place a marker to help it figure out where to place your project in your world. Once you've placed a marker, you can now test your project with mobile AR. This mode will give you two options to help with testing, such as placing a new marker or resetting your scene. Resetting here is similar to the reset button on desktop. Next, let's test on a headset such as the Meta Quest 2 or 3. I have the Quest 3 in hand. In the Scene Editor, go to the Play Mode dropdown and select Headset. Instead of a QR code, you'll get a 6-digit code. In addition to being your key to viewing your work in headset, this code can be shared with others for additional thoughts and feedback. Keeping track of your code, let's put on our headset. When in, go to the native browser and type in the URL bezi.com/connect. There you can type out your 6-digit code to load your project. Much like the smartphone, you need to press the AR button to view your project in AR. Once there, place a marker to help your device understand your environment. To reset your project when in headset, squeeze both triggers when using controllers or use double thumbs up when using hand controllers. When designing interactive prototypes in 3D, it's always best to approach it with a troubleshooting mindset. Here are a few things to keep in mind when composing your projects. Overlapping interactions may cause conflicts with one another. For example, when a screen transitions to another screen. This is usually done by hiding one screen by turning its opacity to 0. Often, the hidden button overlaps the other. Using this example that we built in Bezi, although it's not visible, the interaction is still there. To help you understand why this is happening, interactions in Bezi are calculated by a method called ray casting. This is casting an invisible ray from the origin point in a straight line in 3D. When that ray hits an interactive object, the interaction activates. If that ray hits two interactive objects that overlap and occupy the same space, it can cause interaction conflicts that won't do anything. You'll typically know when an interaction didn't fire when you're clicking on an interactive object and a yellow hotspot warning appears despite your cursor being over that object. The best way to lay your project out in 3D is to make sure that the non-visible screen moves out of the way, often by moving it behind or removing it from the user's field of view. When testing your projects on other devices, depending on how you build your scene, you may find that it doesn't perform well on lower power devices. Some issues could be that your frame rate drops or interactions take a long time to load. We recommend watching the Performance Panel Bezi 101 video to help you design projects that perform well on any device. You now have all the knowledge to confidently create and test 3D interactive designs. In the next few videos, we'll continue how to learn to design for different platforms and collaborate with others. We'll see you there.